Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily podcast powered by Anishar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We are about 8 minutes late today. We're improving. Had to go pick up this shirt. He's got CBD here saying we're late from picking up croquetas. You were close. I was picking up my Croqueta County shirt. I was wearing a shirt that was not, flattering and didn't represent the community like this Croqueta County shirt. So I had to pick it up for Islas Canarias, for the culture, and for my man, Mike Ryan, who was on time, in his seat, poorly lit, and ready to rock.
Always poorly lit, always on time. Hopefully, nameless producer, how does my sound? This whole game is rigged against me. I come into this studio, he's lit like an Egyptian pharaoh, and I'm over here just like in my damp, dark corner. It's super humid. I'm gonna get glistening. I asked for a makeup artist, didn't get one. And I did the least one can do is start this thing on time, routinely for our audience. Now I know the cadence has been a little off, but we have people pre-gaming expecting content. They're planning their day around us, and quite frankly, it's rude.
Listen, I've offered many times to switch seats. I'm very confident in my skin tone, but beyond that,
that's patronizing. When he says something like that, it's totally patronizing. You can switch seats if you want. That's going to help you. I know that. I know the tone attached to it every time. I don't like it.
Got a lot to talk about here. We got Ball State. We don't want that much. We don't got that much, really.
You can't say we got a lot to talk about and in the same breath say we got Ball State. There's not a lot to talk about here. I know the head coach has been very careful to not give bulletin board material. He went as far as to say that's a good team with good football players. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to keep it real with you. I think this team is worse than last week's.
Yeah, we got detailed notes here I put down for the Wrestler of the Week, Song of the Week. I know exactly what we're going to talk about. Ball State, we're going to figure it out as we go, help with you guys and the Q&A and the Canes Insight community. But, looked up Ball State, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Found that out this morning.
Is it Fort Wayne or is it Muncie?
Ooh.
I think it's Muncie because I was looking up bands from Muncie. Now, if it's located in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I actually have a lot to bring to the table because I've been to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I had a great time in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I love the people, love the ballpark, love the food. I love the fact that they give you a cookie when you land at the local airport. I can talk about Fort Wayne. Muncie doesn't appear to be Fort Wayne.
Yeah, Fort Wayne. I think the people that live there definitely need some help with the lighting when they do podcasts. But I digress. So what's up, everybody? Get your questions in on the Q&A. We got a lot. I'll lie again. I'm about to lie again and talk about. We got a lot to talk about. We're already on to cookies at the Fort Wayne airport, so we're clearly running on fumes.
Everyone's saying they can't hear me. They can't. Look, what is happening here? This is sabotage. It's sabotage. Am I just being picked up from D-Money's? I am walking into a trap routinely.
A lot of people that have commented in the comments and on the website have suggested this setup where we take that mic off a little bit and kind of focus the energy right here.
Such operation.
But we're working on it. We're working on getting Mike's mic up. So just a couple things, with respect
to you just talk about how good Ball State is, and I'll go over there and I'll figure out what's going on with my sound.
We good? We back?
No, please go on with the Ball State. Am I good?
God, all right. I hope this.
You want to reset?
I hope this operation is not looking like this on Saturday at 3:30 when Miami lines up against Ball State, who I have been assured. I listened to the Mario Cristobal show.
I had options
with Joe Sagaki and with Don Bailey, and Mario made the scene sound like a powerhouse. Offensive line nasty, a lot of returning starters. Defense, new players, but extremely talented, long, explosive, powerful, well coached. A lot of good football players, great football team.
My wife is watching this. She watches this every week. She's like, "Why do you look sick? What's going on? You're so shiny. You sound like dog poo." And I say, "Don't worry. Give us time. We're an independent operation." And look, week over week, it's irrefutable. It's getting worse for me. It's not getting better.
I gotta say that the Peter Ariz believers out there are like real.
I'm starting to miss Peter.
I've always been the guy that said that you remove Tom Brady from Bill Belichick and you don't have anything, and when Bill Belichick got rid of Brady and Brady won a Super Bowl and Belichick's team went to shambles, I was gloating for months. So I got to imagine that the Pete believers in the chat, which there are many, are gloating right now with Pete up in Italy, in Tuscany right now, sipping wine. and
You
eating
can do
bread.
that all you want, but he is a suspect in this ongoing investigation in terms of this ongoing week-to-week sabotage that I'm experiencing. Ever since he left, though, arrow's been pointing down. Can't lie. Kind of miss him. And if that was his end game, bravo. Slow clap. Because I do.
CBD says Mike is more worried about his skin tone than the Canes. I agree. Let's get back to Ball State.
I am. We're playing Ball State. Have you not seen the last 2 weeks? Why should I be sweating this team?
David Bray will let you know. Elite human beings at Ball State. High care factor as well. What other ones we got for him? What other
elite human beings as part of the scouting
elite
report?
Human beings, high care factor. Alpha. They do have some alpha males on that squad as well.
Okay. All right. So trenches, is that what we're worried about in this game? What I want to see is I want to see the running game get better. Last week was supposed to be the get right game for the running game. To a degree it was, but it's still not at the level that we hope to see, especially with RB1. I think RB2 has been a pleasant surprise. Mark Fletcher, more explosive than he looked even last year. I think a little bit lighter.
Yep.
I don't know if that's just because Damian Martinez looks a little bit bigger, but Mark Fletcher, in my mind, 2 weeks in, and it isn't particularly close, has been the best of those two co-starting running backs. This is not a slight on Damian Martinez whatsoever. I, for those watching, am a big Mark Fletcher guy. I love the fact that we have both Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher. Is this the game in your eyes? Because you've done the scout. I haven't. But Ball State's played one game all season. We're 3 weeks into this football season, 2 official weeks, 3 weeks into the football season, and they've played one. They haven't even played an FBS opponent. So I'm not sure how anyone can scout this, but Mario Cristobal has done it, and you've certainly done a deeper dive. Is this the game that the running game gets to be dominant?
Well, look, I mean, if you look at the stats, again, FAMU, they were pretty dominant statistically, ran for well over 200 yards. Martinez is over 6 yards per carry on the season, which is in line with his career averages. Of course, you played one FCS team. You also played a Florida Gators team that is piss poor. I agree with you. Fletcher's looked more explosive. I kind of like the dynamic with them because Martinez, patient, and then pop. Fletcher comes in. His hair's on fire. He's going straight up field. So they both big backs, but they have different running styles, and I think they present different looks. So you're dealing with, two fireball and relievers, but the ball comes out a little different.
Yeah, it's usually when you have two guys, one is a little bit more dynamic than the other, and so you can have like a thunder and lightning aspect. This has kind of been referred to in our group chats as thunder and thunder a little bit. Still, you kind of, even when Auburn had, and I'm not comparing, but I'm just saying an example of like two guys that were kind of similar in what they brought to the table, Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown, there was more dynamism there with those two backs here. So I'm curious to see who emerges from that crop, like maybe Chris Johnson, to give people different looks, or if Damian Martinez, because there are certain things, and I'm sure if he watches back on film, and I know some of it's gone viral within the Canes community, and the chat probably knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's great that you got 6 yards on that carry, but it could have been 60. What are you seeing from Damian Martinez? Is this any cause for concern, or is this early season progression and he's right exactly where you want him to be?
I feel good with Martinez. Again, I think it's just his running style with that patience lends itself to doing better against better teams. He's not just going to hit the hole and punish these really, crappy teams and wear out his tank. He's taking his time. We're taking our time with him. He's playing mostly the first and the fourth quarter. So you're seeing a strategy of him coming in to start, Fletcher coming in with the fastball off the pen, really putting pressure on defenses, and then Martinez, that patience, starting to wear down teams in the fourth and then popping big runs. That hasn't happened yet because they've been 2 blowout games, but I think that's the formula that they're teasing. With respect to Martinez, we got a great comment here from Trenton Breeze. Feel the breeze right now with Trenton Breeze, who's doing great work for Canes Insight on social on the website. He says, Martinez reminds me of a Ray Davis from Kentucky. It's funny. I actually heard a comp from somebody we both know who is a highly ranking personnel executive, and he compared Martinez to Chris Rodriguez of the Washington Commanders, another Kentucky back. I don't know if that's, ethnic scouting from our buddy there, but that was an interesting comp. Physical Kentucky style back. I think it makes sense. Kentucky's had good running games for a while. Had a great question here, kind of similar questions.
While you look for that question, I do want to say that maybe some of the reason why Damian Martinez didn't look as dynamic as maybe some of us were hoping against FAMU was. That was a different line in week 2. That wasn't the normal. Maybe he would have been more dominant if that was O-line 1. But this was an opportunity when you consider the opponent, despite what they say in the media, to rest some guys, do some maintenance. Don't push the body against these opponents. I don't know what you're hearing on the offensive line. More of the same. It sounded like from the previous episodes, Rodriguez is going to be out for a little bit, and we can't really count on him here. Are we going to get a little closer to OL 1 against Ball State?
We'll see. Rivers is the one. But, I was thinking about this actually this morning, which is there's an advantage. If Markel Bell's the next best offensive lineman, there's an advantage in having him get these reps against the FAMU at Ball State, not just for his own personal development, but he's a left tackle, right? That's where he's repping. The most versatile lineman that you have on your roster is your left tackle, Jalen Rivers, which is usually not the case. Usually you want your left tackle to stay there. That's the most important position. And usually your backup is not necessarily a good left tackle. It's a rare body type and style. Markel Bell seems to be very comfortable on that left side, relative at least to other positions. He's not going to be lining up at center. He's probably too tall for guard. Could play right. But I think Rivers is the one that you might move if someone were to go down. So if Bell is your next best guy, you slide him into left tackle, and then Rivers moves around and fills in spots, whether it's guard, maybe even center with Rodriguez out. Rivers has had time there, right guard, right tackle. So that to me is why you want a Markel Bell to get more experience. Ball State, if it's even close to a borderline call, I would have Markel Bell there getting starter reps because I think he can do it well enough to not get Cam Ward hurt, hopefully. And then he's also going to get up to speed when one of the other positions inevitably goes down and you got to move Rivers around.
Yeah, it helps better serve the long-term goal of this program to have Bell out there against the likes of these opponents because injuries are going to happen along that O-line. You want guys a little less green when you get into conference play. So while you may be frustrated with some of the lack of production, even though he's been pretty productive, Martinez has, it's just he's not breaking off the long game-breaking run and say that's why you commit that NIL to that kind of player. He's left some yards out there on the field. I think it's pretty evident to everybody, but lump it all into taking a more longer term investment in the overall roster, maintenance for some of the O-line guys, putting in some guys that need the experience that may ultimately mean a little less flash and sizzle from your running backs. But I think it became fairly evident after watching that Florida game that internally the objectives of this season went from let's win that game because the season can really open up nicely for this team to now this season can actually really open up nicely. You see some of the other teams, you sample some of college football and you realize maybe Miami's not in tier 1, but there's a group of tier 2 teams and the talent level that what I've seen from obviously a limited sample sizes. Miami is certainly in that conversation in an expanded college football playoff field. I don't think we're being hyperbolic or out of turn in saying that Miami is legitimately in position for a college football playoff spot. So with the objectives changing, you got that Florida game out of the way. Keep your eyes on the prize, keep your players healthy. Don't push them too much if you don't need to, and don't necessarily worry so much about highlight reel plays in week 2 against FAMU. Let's keep guys healthy. Let's get experienced guys in there against now an FBS opponent in Ball State, because there are going to be times this season where Bell is going to be called upon and you're going to need him to hold up and run block and push some guys back. And he's going to be leaning on this experience, like you said, that he's getting here in the early weeks.
By the way, I noticed that when you said program, you pronounced a program. So you said that ironically.
Oh, yeah. No. I didn't say that.
Before.
We're a program. 2 weeks in, I think we dropped the A and put in the U. I really do. We're program.
Joe Namath, when he went to Alabama from Pennsylvania, he used a fake Southern accent so often, and he also was a drunk, that his accent merged into some strange Pennsylvania Southern drunk accent that he still uses to this day living in Jupiter, Florida. So if you ever hear Joe Namath talk and you wonder why does he talk the way he does, it is actually a fused fake Southern Pennsylvania drunkard accent. So be careful with the Southern slang that you take, the Southern twang that you add on, because it's hard to shake once you bring it in there.
How about you just fix the microphone, Steve? just worry about that. You give me some in life advice, throw it right back to you. Fix the microphones and the lighting. All
right. We got Cali Kane 818. D-Money and Mike, do you believe that Barron and Bain Jr. went back could be like what we weren't unfortunately able to see when we had both Rousseau and Phillips on the same team? I'll start. Yes, I don't know if it's going to be as good, but it's going to be a similar dynamic. You also had Quincy Roche on that team, so you thought you might have 3. That's your Messidor.
Wow,
That's
I
potentially
forgot
your
all about
Alston.
Roche.
He was great, man. He was awesome in college. So you had also, you still have Alston and Messidor in that rotation as well. Just going on Phillips and Rousseau. I was listening to the Move the Sticks podcast, which is, former scouts and real NFL people that watch film and break it down from a scouting perspective, executive perspective. And they were saying that when they watched Phillips' film against the Jacksonville Jaguars, first game back from his Achilles injury, devastating injury, he looked like a guy that could lead the league in sacks this year. According to these scouts, I was watching on TV, and he certainly looked like Jalen Phillips to me. Rousseau, long projected for a breakout, had a great camp, getting 3 sacks. Just completely dominant. Von Miller says he's going to be one of the top 5 rushers in the league this year and in line for a $20 million plus year extension. So theoretically, you could be talking about 2 of the top 5 rushers in the league. I'm not saying that's where they're at now, but if they can keep this momentum going, 2 of the top 5 rushers in the NFL, so in the world, at the same time. We could have had them both at the U with Roche coming off the bench. So I'm not going to put these guys in that category. But when you add the Messidor and you add the Alston, who both have looked really good to start, it gets a little interesting there at defensive end.
Yeah, we talked about Martinez leaving some yards on the field. I think I still want to see a little bit more at a Messidor, especially with Bain out. That's an opportunity for his production to have an uptick because he's not fighting a Ruben Bain for snaps and those sacks. So I think that there's plenty to want to see. I think Sam Brown's got to lock in a little bit more. And thankfully, you have one more final tune-up for what now does seem like a game that people are going to judge you on against USF. We all watched USF second straight year going toe-to-toe with Alabama. Final score not necessarily reflecting what a dogfight that was between the two. This is going to be a really nice test. It depends on, in the long run, what kind of season USF has, but I'm thankful for these tune-up opponents because that is going to be a game that a lot of people, a lot of voters, a lot of coaches are going to be paying attention to, maybe a lot of scouts too, to see how Miami can flash. And I think we got to have more from Messidor, got to have more from Sam Brown, and got to have more from Martinez if you want to put up an impressive performance against USF.
A lot of comments comparing you to Mike Gundy here. Johnny Lagoon, he's always there. I saw him.
Saratoga Falls in the back. It's a mullet. Yeah, okay.
I saw Johnny Lagoon. Saw you at the Miami Hurricane team store for the autograph session with Damian Martinez.
You got to be nice to that guy. I hope you were nice to him.
Oh, Johnny Lagoon.
Yeah, he'll hold it against you if you're not.
I'm sure Mish Powell and Damian Martinez were outstanding. And by the way, there's going to be a lot more autograph sessions at Miami Hurricane team store by the university. So stay tuned for that. Monte also saying Mike Ryan Gundy,
Is this the first time you guys have seen me? I've been doing this with funny hair for like a decade.
Yeah, but you're almost 40 now, so now you are a man.
What kind of shot is that?
You're a man. You're 40.
Okay, all right.
Almost.
All right.
I'll be a man before you, but it's coming. The manhood is coming at 40.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be defending somebody.
Maybe it's surprising that you're older than me, considering your youthful lighting over there.
What can I tell you? If someone goes after Trenton Breeze, I might have to defend it with the Mike Gundy rant. Here we go. Let's get some more questions here. We got
guys. You're gonna have to get over. You're gonna have to get over the hair. It's been a thing. All right.
Ben Pfeiffer, are we limiting CJ Chris Johnson usage solely because of pass protection risk? Could split him out like Damian was on that 3rd down conversion last week. They're denying that. They're saying that he can do everything anyone else can do, pass protection wise, run scheme wise. I do think he'll be more in that specialist role. You saw how he was used against FAMU. I do think he will get reps in meaningful games at meaningful moments because of his ability to change the scoreboard. But yes, I think you will see him more in a role where he knows exactly what he's doing. Now, you can't just not have him pass protect because it's going to be too much of a tell for the defense. And he is a tough player. He's going to try. He's getting bigger. But yeah, I think his role more with the first team will be as a specialist as opposed to that 3rd back, which Jordan Lyle seems to have taken a stranglehold on that 3rd spot.
Yeah, pretty impressive pass protection skills from Jordan Lyle. And while it may be frustrating for Chris Johnson to be behind Jordan Lyle on the depth chart seemingly, because the staff, depending on the spin, all we can go off is what we see on the field. It's pretty self-evident that they trust Lyle a little bit more in pass pro situations. That's just an opportunity for Chris Johnson to not get frustrated, but to sometimes you accept the challenge and you get better and you improve on these aspects. But he still has a dynamism about him, a game-breaking quality in that backfield that you really haven't had since Knighton was here. And I think that this offense is still kind of missing that out of the backfield. We're kind of waiting to see if Martinez is capable of doing it like he was in the spring game. Maybe not the guy to count on that. And so Chris Johnson, I definitely think that even though the team doesn't quite trust him just yet, as much as they trust a true freshman in pass pro, there is a nice lane here for him with good concepts. And as everybody on the offense has alluded to, as your eyes are telling you, this offense has not really opened things up. And I don't expect them to truly open things up until maybe USF.
Yeah, we got a comment here from Reggae Historian. I lived in Fort Wayne. It's a nice city. It's close to a lot of other cities. Ball State is in Muncie.
There you go. Another time today that I was right. Making a habit of it today.
Yeah, you're on fire here. So, with respect to Chris Johnson,
Weird tone.
You mentioned Knighton, also Brashard Smith, right? So we don't have that dynamic player at the receiving position.
How's that going for them, by the way?
You tell me. I know you were watching that with a lot of interest.
I had the over in that game. I don't know why. Like that, Rhett Lashley's got to answer some questions with this offense. He just named a dude starter who kind of has already been starting. Like, he wasn't starter in name, but he was out there. Like, I don't think he's been the solution to what I've been seeing the last few weeks. Like, is this offense a gimmick? Now we have the quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke, who we will get to later today because we're about to learn a lot about Tyler Van Dyke here against the opponent. But Rhett Lashley, he had a really good season last season. It seemed like a really good hire for SMU. Was it a flash in the pan? Are people onto him? Because this is such a decline. It's not like Nevada is a good team. Put up a little bit more of a fight against BYU, but that's starting to look a little funny in the ACC light, and they haven't even gotten to conference play.
Yeah, and Menmond had a great post on the CanetonSite.com message boards, 7 million posts and counting, all free, listing all the Texas quarterbacks that are starting in college football. And it was like 30, 40 names. They were all like, not all, but majority of those guys were good impact players, whether it's from Arkansas or for Alabama or for the Miami Hurricanes. There's a lot of very good quarterbacks in Texas. I don't understand how Southern Methodist, with all the money, can't get somebody that can be prolific at the college level. I mean, you don't need a first overall pick.
You mentioned all the money, and most people watching are like, well, it's kind of a small school, but they have a huge booster base. There is a lot of wealthy alumni that went to that school.
Yeah, Dallas is actually, I've always thought that LA or Miami would be the plastic surgery capital of the world, but I did some research. It's actually Dallas, Texas, that is the plastic surgery capital, not of the world, sorry, of the United States. South America is strong as they are in soccer with plastic surgery. But in terms of the United States, Dallas, Texas, those of you who are in Texas can vouch for this.
Turkey, don't forget Turkey. They're doing some good stuff down there.
Turkey has like novelas. Do you know that?
Turkey?
So a lot of this is going to go over the head of 90% of our listeners.
You watch Turkish novelas?
But those who know what this Croqueta County shirt is about and have grandmothers or aunts or whatever that watch novelas, Spanish soap operas, right, on the Spanish channels, a lot of them are from Turkey, and they just changed the words to Spanish, and it's Turkey. And Scandalous, the girls are hot. It's a straight soap opera, but it's from Turkey. They had like Suleiman the Magnificent. If you guys have ever seen that one, Turkish. It's like the Suleiman, like from Turkey, from Ottoman Empire. He had like a ton of wives, and it was obviously a dramatic thing with all the wives. They just changed it to Spanish, and he just broke it down. It was a relationship drama, a page turner. So Turkey, you think of it as a conservative country, but yes, plastic surgery and also soap operas.
I gotta come up with a name for when this stuff happens. Nameless producer. It happened when the topic of baby lambs came up, and then all of a sudden he had a wealth of knowledge on like the exact spot to hit a baby lamb or a ram, and it was kind of like odd. It was like a weird hijacking of the show, and now he's kind of done it again with the Turkish novellas. I had no idea. There is something curious. You're a very interesting person.
Listen, if
you're a tough nut to crack, D-Money.
If you're in the comments and you've seen any of these Turkish soap operas, or your girlfriend or whoever, we have some female fans here. I know there's some female fans in the chat. I learned that we have a stronger female demographic than people give us credit for. If you
that's because they give us zero credit.
If you are watching Suleiman or any of these other great Turkish soap operas on Univision or Telemundo, let us know in the comments. Oh, here we go. Mega Slots and DIY. Bro, my wife watches all these Turkish novellas. The chicks love them. 100% right. Thank you, Mega Slots DIY.
No, I'm not saying stop it. I'm trying to figure out what to call it and how to unlock it more because I'm enjoying it, but it's just peculiar.
Only guy I know that flips between soap operas and wrestling. That's some bad news for you, Johnny Lagoon. They're not too different there, my friend. Turkish wrestling is more traditional. They occasionally use oil as well. So we got to get back to some football here.
It's Ball State week, really.
Here's Devon Mayfield. Great question here. How do they don't have the dramatic player at the wide receiver position, and they have two wideouts that were top 10 in the country in Trader and Carr? Now, young players that were here in spring made a lot of plays. Mike, I know you were there with me watching these guys make a lot of plays in spring and camp. Trader's dealing with an injury. He played. Both these guys had catches last week. I think if you're comparing them to Jeremiah Smith, first of all, Jeremiah Smith is very unique, but Jeremiah Smith is real big physically. These are lighter players. They're getting used to the contact, and they got good players in front of them.
I think that he means dynamic player, dramatic player. Like I'm actually really happy that we don't have a dramatic player. Jacoby George would have been everybody's pick, but everyone saw him get punched in the face and do nothing. And he's getting all sorts of credit, as he should. I think Jacoby George is a bit of a game breaker. He's flashed that before for this program, and I think that he was dealing with some stuff, and he's still not quite fully fit. And I think that we do have those impact players. And in the meantime, Xavier Restrepo, credit where it's due, he's kind of opened up his repertoire a little bit. He's opened up the bag, like with that spin move. He's really shown some ability while the ball is in his hands after the catch. So, and Arroyo as well. We saw some with Riley Williams, a little bit of the run after the catch. I think that we're going to see, I think the best days for this wide receiver core are well ahead of them. Still, this is still even though the core was there, they're working with a new quarterback. Some of them are working themselves to fitness. Sam Brown is a whole new situation. You'd like to see him. He's had the opportunity though, and where you can get a little disappointed is he hasn't cashed in just yet. But Miami has looked really dominant, and we are truly nitpicking here. But I do think that we have some pretty dynamic receivers on the roster. We've seen them make plays in practice. We've seen in Jacoby George in his instance and Sam Brown in previous stops. We've seen them be that guy. I don't think that there's a scenario in which they've all of a sudden lost dynamism.
Yeah, you made a great point about Restrepo. I pulled it up. Restrepo's 2 games. One's FCS. One is the very poor Florida Gators football team. But you're talking about 19.6 yards per catch for Xavier Restrepo, which would be by far his career high. He's a career 13.6 guy. One of my hot takes was that he would get 10 or more touchdowns this year, which he never has really come close. He has 2, so still early. We'll see how conference play is. But
he's carrying a bit more weight, isn't he, D-Money? And he's not losing any speed. If anything, he's gaining quickness because of that lower body is really providing some boost for him. Like he's growing into someone. I know before the season started, Pete floated that he might be a running back at the next level if he has next level opportunities. I think he's putting up the kind of season and the kind of displays in these games that you could see this guy being a run after the catch type of slot receiver weapon at the next level. And he's done the things to his body and he's worked on aspects of his game. And that's what scouts genuinely check in on players. Like he has improved every season he has been here. And in certain seasons, he improves game over game. If that's going to be the case, who knows where this season ends for Xavier Restrepo? He is going to be owning that Miami record book if this upward trajectory continues.
I agree totally. He's a guy, when you work hard, you get better. We saw that with KJ Osborne. We saw that with Barrios. We saw that with Dorsett. Alan Hearn's a major one. Hankerson back in the day, a lot of people thought he had bad hands. He ended up working really hard. Now he's a receiver coach at the NFL level. So that's what hard work will do for you.
In demand coach. Like he's going to be a budding superstar in the coaching ranks, Leonard Hankerson.
Excited about him. Some budded superstars, some superstars that have already budded. Anajar and Levine accident attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-3733, 1-800-747-FREE. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. They don't get paid until you get paid. So you got Ray here. He's saying we'd love to see some more deep shots, go routes, and post this Saturday. Haven't been too many through 2 games. It's interesting. You mentioned Martinez and kind of getting him going, right? If they really start focusing on that running game and stopping Martinez, stopping Fletcher, stopping Lyle. Now the safeties creep up, and you had that explosive element. Now, is a team going to say, we don't think you can beat us deep and challenge us that way? We saw that happen in the past when Mark Pope and D. Wiggins were here, if you recall, with Derek King. That's how every team played us because they didn't respect our wide receivers. I don't think they can get away with that this time with Horton on the outside. I've seen him score a lot of touchdowns on post. Jacoby George hasn't really gotten going, has been dealing with some minor injuries, but I think he's just waiting for that big breakout game. And of course, Sam Brown, who is a very polarizing player. I was defending him and a lot of people push back. So Mike, I want to see what you think on Sam Brown. Do you think it's a matter of time before he breaks out, or are you starting to get concerns?
I'm not concerned. I just don't think he's put that great tape out there just yet from what people are looking for him to do. I do try to do some rewatches and see what he brings to the team from an intangible standpoint, and blocking is a tangible skill. We saw him be a lead blocker on a touchdown run at Gainesville. But I think he came into town with certain expectations. This is someone that I thought would be wide receiver 1 down here, be our most productive wide receiver. 2 games in, very clearly who number 1 is. And I don't think Sam Brown's number 2 at this point in time. Excuse me, getting over something. But Horton's probably wide receiver 2 so far. But I think the talent level, Horton was still like someone that we thought we were still developing. And I think that speaks to something that Sam Brown and Jacoby George are going through. I think as the season goes on, the offense opens up a little bit more. Those are the guys that you take your shots with. Horton will also be a deep shot guy. But Jacoby George will be, if you want to see more 9 routes and more just like catch this guy, that's Jacoby George. And so far, 2 weeks into this Miami football season, you look at that USF game. How does this opponent prepare for Miami? What do they try to take away? It's really difficult. We do a Miami Hurricanes podcast. I'm not really sure what you try to stop if you're going to commit to one certain thing, because we've seen so little of the offense. These are pretty base looks. So I'd like to actually go into USF, a primetime game, with that air of mystery still, because we're doing a pretty good job of nitpicking here and things, individual performances. It's not even like these players have been bad. These players haven't been utterly great and dominant. And if that person is dominant, you're going to have complaints about the next person down the depth chart. That's just the way. There's only so many snaps in a football game. From a tactical standpoint, really hard to figure out what the weak spot is of this Miami Hurricanes football team so far. Entering the season, we thought secondary and offensive line, those 2 units 2 weeks in, look pretty strong. So I'm still struggling to figure out, how do you attack this Miami Hurricanes football team?
Yeah, and Matt Lamont made a comment that Miami hasn't opened up their playbook yet. Shannon Dawson said something similar in his press conference. Mike, you're talking about the same thing. What more is cooking? I think in the red zone, you're going to see a lot more of Elijah Lofton. He's playing a lot, but there's much more he can do. He can run it. He can lead block. He can pass protect. He can line up wide, run routes. He can catch screens and get in there that way. I mean, really, he's probably one of the most talented red zone players, just because to have a guy who's 6'1", 250, 245, physical, can run with quickness and finesse, can run routes with finesse, can catch the ball one-handed. It's just a unique combination that I have not seen in a player. I mean, Montreal Fulcher back in the day could do some of this stuff, who was one of the best H-backs Miami's had, along with Bubba Franks being the big inline guy. If those of you remember Montreal Fulcher, I think he was a high school quarterback, but ended up getting drafted. But this guy, Lofton, is just a unique guy. And I think in terms of opening up the bag, red zone, you'll see more Lofton. And then Chris Johnson, we talked about earlier, the things you do with him. Those are some of just the special week-to-week kind of matchup things that I think you will see, and maybe both of them together. That's not out the cards.
That's certainly something I want to see down the line, and it's not something, truth be told, that I want to see against Ball State. I want to see your base looks and nothing too creative. Like us talking about Elijah Lofton being a solution to minor ails in the red zone. Like, let USF find that out for the first time when you unveil it against them, because that is a game that you're going to have to open it up. They seem to be talented, and the national perspective is they've seen Alabama be challenged twice by this team. So if you are skeptical about Miami, and again, we'll learn a little bit more about Miami in a game that doesn't even feature them, that Texas A&M game, who now I've got all sorts of questions about how good Texas A&M is. This is a transitive property sport. They lost to Notre Dame, You can understand that first game for a new head coach, experienced Notre Dame team, and then Notre Dame turns around and loses to Northern Illinois. So now the spread certainly shrinks against Florida. If Florida beats Texas A&M, you'll have all these questions about Texas A&M, but you revisit that win from Miami and you say, well, Miami is not just a great deal better than Florida. They're a great deal better than Texas A&M. They're a great deal better than Notre Dame. And you have more and more data points here. I think I'm increasingly getting more and more excited for this opportunity ahead of the team 2 weeks from now, because the ACC, they've had some good moments. I think Cal, that's another tricky game that's going to be there for Miami. But you can see a scenario where there aren't going to be a lot of spotlight attraction games. Virginia Tech dropped that first early one to Vanderbilt. So this is a nice little opportunity to get yourself high up into that rankings if you have a good performance against a team that is presently perceived as a tough out.
Look, with the way the 12-team playoff is, and I love college football being the best regular season in sports. I am an opponent of it, but it's here. There's a lot of big games waiting. So let's figure out what this team is. There'll be plenty of marquee games to be played if we can take care of business now and stay healthy. Paul Erickson, my man in the Midwest, gas station selfie days are gone. They are with the receiving core. I've not seen Horton in a gas station. I have not seen Restrepo in a gas station. These guys are working. Jacoby George maturing before our eyes, not fighting people when he's getting penalties. Now he's in the Ginobili Dennis Rodman mode where he's mastered his annoyance to be a weapon as opposed to a detriment. So that's development right there at the receiving position.
No greater indicator on how a season's going to go when you compare normal pictures to gas station pictures. Look at what's happening in FSU. Their quarterback had a NIL deal with Circle K.
Yeah, let's man, we gotta find. I'm gonna find that picture. They were spraying super soakers in the back of practice. DJU was taking snaps. I'll send it to the unnamed producer right now. DJU was taking snaps, and they were running around with a super soaker behind him. Maybe the super soaker had gasoline. Maybe it was like a Zoolander situation, and they were just having a gasoline fight. That would be apropos for the Seminoles and the season they're having. But
are we getting to our Memphis FSU segment, or do I hold that a little bit more? I can hold that a little bit more. But you're opening up the path right now. We'll give time for a nameless producer to find the image.
I'll send it to him right now. It's priceless. I mean, these guys suck. What by the way, so I'm trying to find it here in the Seminole Tiers thread, which it gets updated so frequently. So Miami, for those of you who don't know, Canes Inside, we have a thread called Seminole Tiers and Gator Tiers, where embarrassing moments for the Gators, embarrassing moments for the Noles are displayed, on the thread and updated as they happen. Last 2 weeks, those threads have exploded in both views and posts. I'm losing track of the posts because the Gator Tiers and the Nole Tiers threads are overflowing. So nameless producer, I dropped it in the rundown. See if you can pull up that thread from Canes Insight, and we'll get this thing rolling. Johnny, let's see what else.
It's a nice headshot for Paul Erickson.
Oh, the guy's he's the educator of the year in the state of Kansas.
Oh, really?
He's the Razor Ramon of the Great Plains.
That's why the
is off the chart.
I was going to say, I didn't know that they still did the Sears photo shoot. But that's a school picture, so it's not at a Sears. So you're all good.
I've never been to a Sears. They
used to have a Sears at like International Mall.
Oh, International Mall. So I'd go to International.
I used to go over there to play like the demo Sega Genesis, the X-Men. I'm Psylocke.
Do you ever get a haircut there?
No. What, is this a hair joke?
No, they had like a place to get fades. I think it was called like Father Son Fade Master or something like that. You get your fade.
No, I don't really remember if I bought anything at Sears. I just remember playing the X-Men Sega Genesis game there.
I gotcha.
And looking at TVs. I think I saw the USA Columbia World Cup match at a Sears.
Oh, with the own goal?
Yeah.
All right, here, check this out here. So you got DJU, quarterback 1. I think that's cool. Who's number 4? Look at this in the back. In the back.
That is DJU.
Chasing them with a super soaker. So anyone in the comments can explain what the purpose of this drill is. Run it again, unnamed producer, because I gotta see this again. I'm not sure if they're trying. Is it like avoiding water makes you faster? Is that what it is? Like don't get wet, and that teaches you quickness. Here we go.
I don't.
Are they trying to stay hydrated so they're running around and getting water sprayed on them constantly?
I don't like this super donation that we just got.
Oh, Plank Time, appreciate you. $20 for Mike's haircuts. You can keep $15 for yourself and other interest.
What
on that one?
The hell?
So appreciate that. So, I see
My haircut is way more than $20. Way more.
Appreciate you, Plank Time. Monte, simulating rain. Dumb way to do it. Okay, that I guess makes sense. Catching the punt in the rain. Is that what that is?
I don't. Does rain ever hit you from beneath?
From the side.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Like Norvell and his staff. It's going to be an interesting case study because when vibes are good, that's a fun coach to have around. Is it going to be patronizing like when you're 0-3 having lost to Memphis at home and this guy's still trying this way? Like, is he capable of like being fiery and being taken seriously? I'm not exactly sure, but it doesn't seem like they're going to stop giving us memes.
Speaking of that, we got 1,063 people on. Unnamed producer, pull up that second link that I have right under the Knoll tiers for those who are not in the chat or had not been on yet. I gotta put them on this right here. Man, with the Gators practicing in a drain and the Knolls practicing with Super Soaker. We used to be the ones doing all these.
Well, maybe that's why the Gators practice near a drain. Maybe they do the same drill. Maybe
right.
We're the ones that are wrong.
Wash out the water. There we go. We got my man El Sultan right here, Suleiman. Look at how many chicks this guy's got as the Sultan. I mean, he's got the whole crew, the whole harem.
We're back in.
He's got the older one right there, the younger ones. Clearly some jealousy going on between that. The guy's plotting on him in the back. I mean, you really think about it, a lot of drama in this kind of dynamic. When you have one guy and he's got multiple girls and everybody's plotting on him.
This is in Turkey?
That's Turkey. It's
the hairlines would suggest it's not.
I'm telling you, they
if only there were a place for them to go in their own country where they can get that hairline right.
So El Sultan, check it out and report back on the show next week.
I'm torn between there and Boston. I'm hearing good things about Boston. Apparently there's a guy that did all the New England Patriots, all the old New England Patriots. I should say there's sports personalities in media that are presently undergoing this. And this is all data points for me and my future. There may be a signing day where I have like a hat that will determine like, is it Turkey or is it Boston? Because I will do this if we get to 9 million posts in like the next month at Canes Insight, all of a sudden we have some income that we can splurge. And clearly I'm vain enough to subject myself to this and continually provide feedback. And nothing's been done. Nothing's been done about this lighting. So maybe I just need a whole new lid. Yeah. Feel better about myself.
Turkey over Boston all day. They got beaches in Turkey. It's warm. The girls look better. Turkey over Boston all day. I mean, I know human rights violations. I won't get into all that.
Well, it's not like Boston's the best.
But you talk about beaches and you're talking about, about looks. You can get away with some light human rights.
Yeah, if we're holding things against specific places, Boston's got a laundry list too. So a lot of Canes though. A lot of Canes in Boston.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went to like a Canes watch party for like a big Shane Larkin basketball game out there. I actually saw Miami versus Duke. Do you remember that time Bomani Jones was wearing a cool hat and he was standing next to Warren Sapp inexplicably? That was the game that I was in Boston for. I watched that game with a big alumni base out in Boston. So shout out if you're in Boston watching right now, shout out to you. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, Shane Larkin, in fact, is a Turkish basketball royalty.
Yeah, and he played for Boston too. Look at that. The Venn diagram continues. It grows larger.
His profile lists him as American Turkish, so I think he's converted, or what do you call it?
Dude,
I changed it to Turkey.
Yeah, I had the pleasure last summer when I went to Paris and then Greece with the women's basketball team. The women's basketball team played an exhibition game in Athens, and it was at this basketball gymnasium that's Antetokounmpo stuff everywhere, as you can imagine. But the employees that were running this gym were all locked into a Champions League basketball game, and Shane Larkin was like the talisman. Like everybody was locked in. They were playing a Shane Larkin team, and everybody was locked in. I couldn't believe my eyes that Shane Larkin was such a legend over there.
I can't believe he changed citizenship. We got to bring him on the podcast and ask him about some of this, these stereotypes that we're throwing at the Turks, so he can give us the perspective as an American Turkish citizen.
We have a couple of comments in the comment section.
They're setting us up on a platter of croquetas.
That's what I was pointing out to. I'm getting a hint of the cadence here on your pitchmanship.
I know I'm not very subtle. Plank Time, you're the man. Appreciate your support. $20 lunch at Islas. You can get a lot at Islas with $20. And Mark Chandler's asking, what's the best place to get croquetas? You ask any Cuban this or anybody that doesn't require lighting, as much lighting as Mike, they will tell you the best place to get croquetas is Islas Canarias, the best croqueta in the planet Earth. You can go to Turkey, you can go to Boston, you can go anywhere in the world. Nobody's got a croqueta like Islas Canarias. It's always been down west, way down there, and people would make the trek. Anthony Bourdain actually went to Islas Canarias when he did his Miami episode. He went all the way down to Cuban country in the deep burbs just to go to Islas Canarias, just to show you he knew what was legit. RIP. But now you don't have to go that far. Islas Canarias Express is in Dayland in the dining pavilion, formerly known as the food court. Wendy's is in the food court, right? Sabaros is in the food court. Islas Canarias is in the dining pavilion because it is just a level above quality-wise. You go there for breakfast, get your coffee, get your creta.
I used to always see Jimmy Graham in that dining pavilion at Dayland. Jimmy Graham was like, I don't know, I couldn't avoid him. When he was at college, if I went to dinner at CPK, he was having dinner at CPK. Unavoidable.
If he was at if they had the Islas Canarias, he'd be playing defensive tackle. He wouldn't have played tight end. Not because the food is fattening, but just because the amounts that you want to eat when you go out there is it's too much. So Islas Canarias, again, Islas Canarias Express plus croquetacounty.com if you want to get the shirts. They got a whole line of merch. This one's nice and
nice little boat shirt.
Yeah, you wear this on the boat. You can go fishing. It's the mullet run. I know we got a lot of fishermen that listen to the show. It's September, so people are out there catching mullets. You want to sit there on the beach thinking about who's going to be running the ball against Ball State, casting out into the surf. We're Islas Croquetas fishing shirt, croquetacounty.com, and of course Islas Canarias in Dayland. I don't want to say they don't have to pay me to do this because I like getting paid to do it, but this is speaking from the heart right now. So Islas Canarias, we love you. All right, let's back to Canes football here. We got Juan Manuel Ventura, D-Money, but Mike, I want you to answer this first. Do you think OJ Frederick and the play of Jaden Harris up the ceiling of the secondary? And then we got some interesting wrestling question afterwards. Let's talk about OJ Frederick and Jaden Harris first.
I think the ceiling has been raised. You didn't know how they would fare week one, and say what you will about Florida. They entered that game feeling pretty damn good about their wide receivers and their quarterback, and they left that game not feeling so good because of what that secondary did. Jaden Harris in particular has been really impressive thus far. I think, like I mentioned earlier in the show, you had two question marks. The interior of the offensive line, you felt pretty good about the tackles, but center and guard, and you already have a player of the week on that end. And in the secondary, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have a player of the week too in the secondary. So I think all in all, especially when you start getting guys, remember Ruben Bain's going to help your secondary when he comes back. If you can, knock on wood, keep being healthy and keep welcoming this talent back in the lineup. Yeah, I think Miami has an ACC championship caliber secondary, especially when you look around the rest of the ACC. I know Virginia Tech's got some pieces, some units on defense that you look at. Clemson most certainly, but this entering the season would have been what I would have ventured a guess as that's the Achilles heel. That's what you attack. And it still may be, but it's not super susceptible in ways that I thought entering the season. I think this is a pretty good unit.
Yeah, and Harris, to your point about ceiling, I think he looks like an NFL safety.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say he's a first round safety, but he looks like someone who's
20 looked good. 20 looked good. Like he belonged last week too. Fully online for a youngster. I'm really happy with what we've seen from Patterson too. Like we hoped that this secondary would get better as the season went on. It's going to be a little tough here when you're coming off the Florida game with FAMU and Ball State. It's hard to measure like improvements, but let's see what Florida does. They look good. Granted, it was Samford. Who knows? But look, the last time they played Samford scored 50 plus points on them. They needed all of 70 to beat them. Florida looked pretty good against Samford. So we're in wait and see to help shape these takes a little bit on perceived weaknesses, because right now, as I said, I don't know exactly where you attack Miami. You're going to just try to have to beat them at their own game, and that seems pretty tough. Certainly for Ball State, it will be.
Yeah, I don't even know what their own game is. Juan Manuel Ventura, though, also had a wrestling comment. He said, Gunther is overrated and bland without his two stooges, Giovanni and Chihuahua face, with hot teardrop girl Tiffany Stratton, referring to Ludwig Kaiser, the significant other of Tiffy Time, Tiffany Stratton, Miss Money in the Bank. I don't know. To me, there's a place for the fundamentals. Look at the college football. Mike Leach, RIP, we love him. never won a national championship. He inspired a whole legion of people who have had a lot of success. But if you look at in 2023, right, last season, modern college football, Michigan Wolverines won the national championship, throwing it like 9 times a game. So to me, there's a place for fundamentals, for bland style that is effective, that is fundamentally sound, and that is proven over time and time again. I put Gunther in that category. He doesn't need to do all the flips. He doesn't need to no-sell everything. He can tell a story in the ring with the trunks, old school. He would have worked just as well in 1950 as he works here in 2024. To me, one of the top 5 wrestlers in the world, Gunther. I don't know why they broke up the crew, because I like those guys as just stooges.
Internet rumor mill on that one's kind of fun.
Oh, give it to me. What's going on?
I'm not gonna.
Oh,
it's
are
not
we
my
get sued
place.
for that?
It's not my place. It's not my place.
Oh.
It's all alleged.
Huh. Tiffany Stratton involved?
It's all alleged.
Stay tuned. We'll dig into that for next season.
I will say Giovanni, I've seen tape of him like on his solo stuff. He's actually really agile. He's a good high flyer, can work the ropes pretty well. So I don't think that they actually have much for him, and we'll see. But his in-ring work, especially on the indie front, was pretty impressive.
Yeah, good in NXT too. Martin Dubé. I must come to America and try croquetas. I have no idea what they are because I assume they are Cuban. Martin Dubé from Africa, our guy. What I think Botswana. Let me know in the comments because I know I don't want to just name the whole continent there. But Martin, yeah, croquetas are Cuban. They're like a ham. How do you describe it? A fried ham paste.
Fried ham. Yeah.
Paste.
Yeah, I think paste.
Ham paste. It tastes a lot better than it sounds.
Ham compost.
Yeah, you put 2 crackers and make a little sandwich with the Ritz crackers. Start the morning off with them. You can also
a little
put
squeeze
in
of lime.
sandwiches.
You need the squeeze of lime.
Yeah, you gotta have the squeeze of lime. So yeah, unbelievable. They are Cuban, but Cuba doesn't have the ingredients anymore. You know, they're a poor communist country. So when you go to the state of Florida, Islas Canarias, you have the soul of the homeland, but now in the greatest country in the world, you have the ingredients to match, and you have a croqueta that is unparalleled anywhere in the country. I know Spain has croquetas as well. Yeah. They're a little more refined. They're not as greasy and good. You know, I don't know. I'm not into that whole pronouncing the Z's with the TH lifestyle. It's a little snooty for me. And the croquetas, I feel reflects that attitude. The best croquetas in the world, Islas Canarias, down here in Miami, Dayland Dining Pavilion.
He's had more to say about Islas Canarias and Ball State, which I don't blame him.
Yeah, we're at 50. Yeah, I don't know what they have in Fort Wayne, Indiana, or
they're in Muncie. Fort Wayne, they've got plenty. And
Muncie, Indiana.
Go to a Tin Caps game. That minor league ballpark that they have in Fort Wayne is a crown jewel of minor league baseball. And you're a baseball guy, you should know better.
I should. Yeah, we got some Indiana talk coming soon here. We do have to squeeze in some football talk here, some Ball State talk. I've got 12:30 on the show. Appreciate all you. Here's a general football question. This will lead us to the picks. So, unnamed producer, get the picks ready. Bernardi Vargas Villa wants to know, out of AP top 10, who do you guys think this Miami team could beat?
Well, there's a clear and obvious tier 1. That's Georgia. It's Ohio State. I don't think Oregon can be in that conversation anymore. And it's curious to see what happened to Oregon, and particularly where their weak spot is. They surrendered 4 sacks to Boise State. I think they surrendered all 5 sacks last season. So it's curious what's happening to Oregon, and that their weakness is the strength of Miami's developing that offensive line. Not really sure what happened there, but there's Ohio State, Texas, Georgia. These are teams that have been there, done that. I'm not quite sure Alabama is in that tier. Maybe you shift them to tier 2. Whether or not Miami can beat them, luckily we'll have a nice frame of reference to see how each individual program did against USF. So that's TBD. Ole Miss, who knows? I think we have a pretty good idea of what that team is. They're going to lose a couple of times inside that SEC. Still has a legit shot at the college football playoff. But look, Henry Parrish had an amazing game for them. He didn't have a spot here on this roster. From a talent perspective, I think Miami can hang. Schematically, Lane Kiffin, we hold his offensive genius in high regard. and their further years into their program over there. So that's tough. Missouri, maybe we find out a little bit more. It's a big game for Boston College and the ACC. Hopefully they don't embarrass themselves, but Missouri doing a lot of great things in the talent acquisition game, a little further along than Miami. But I think Miami plays a style that in the college football playoff, provided that they get there, this is a team that's built to hang around. Even last year, it's not really a team that you could blow out. It's not like Mario Cristobal year one. Tennessee is a team that has really impressed me so far. That I know NC State was one of your picks, and they weren't in that game whatsoever. And this is a team that has committed a lot of resources to the offensive side of the ball at quarterback and talent retention, which is as important as talent acquisition. They have a dynamite wide receiver in Concepcion. You would have known it. Look, we got Tyler Barron here from Tennessee. They don't miss him. So Tennessee figures to be in that national title conversation. And I would probably, maybe it's a bridge too far, just 2 weeks into the season, but I'd say they're closer to that tier 1 status than Miami is at this point in time. Oregon knocked them down. I think that the Miami can certainly hang with the likes of Penn State. Let's put 4 teams in tier 1, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee. I'd certainly handicap those teams favored against Miami, but outside of that, Miami can pretty much hang with the rest, I think.
And I will say, by the way, Tennessee did look great. I picked NC State to cover there. They looked horrible. Yeah. I mean, the Tennessee was much more complete than I expected. You mentioned the D-line. The D-line was outstanding.
Can you imagine if they had Barron too?
I know.
My goodness.
Thankfully, they don't. But, to me, who can Miami be in the top 10? I think Miami can beat everyone in the top 10. Now, I think Miami's ranked where they should be ranked. I think if you're putting spreads together, Miami's going to be the underdog to a lot of these teams. So
keep in mind spreads are designed to get 50-50 action. So it's like perception is the reality when it comes to odds making.
But in terms of can they beat these teams with a quarterback like Cam Ward and a great pass rusher, assuming you get Ruben Bay back soon, which I think we will, I think this team is built to beat teams that might be better than them on paper. And I think one thing about this college football season, as I look around, maybe I'll be proven wrong when the NFL draft comes. I don't think that you have these super teams like you've had in some recent years where you got just multiple superstar players. I'm looking at Mac Jones in Alabama when he had, Devontae Smith and all these incredible players, Najee Harris, great guys on the offensive line. The defense was just loaded with stars. I don't see Georgia's the best team. They have the best players. I don't see an abundance of superstars. Their running backs are okay. And they're good. The runners are good.
I think they were more talented last year. And you saw that just in that week 1 of the NFL Sunday, McConkey and Bowers, these are guys that look like they belong.
Yeah, Kobe Young was a featured guy for them, and he's nothing, that we haven't seen, right? So I think
NIL's leveling the playing field, and this is a good year to have an expanded playoff because I think there are presently more than 4 teams that can win the national title. Whereas before you were talking about a team 4 that you didn't really think had a shot to be a national title contender. And I understand why people were like, how do we go from 4 to 12? Maybe have some more progression. But you look at just in looking at the AP top 10 right now, these are all teams that would feel pretty good about their chances right now and would have some really compelling games. You want to avoid the blowout. You may have one with the 1 seed dedicated to the lowest non-P4 team. But I think so far, this is an immense college football season. I've really enjoyed it. I'm curious to see how the stakes in retrospect get ratcheted up because that kind of felt like an important moment for Notre Dame, but they still have a lot in front of them. Now, granted, if you can lose to Northern Illinois, you can lose to the likes of USC, who also may lay claim to that tier 2 status, who might also feature in the college football playoff in ways that Miami are.
I can't believe it took me an hour to say this. Ball State beat Northern Illinois last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the few wins.
Ball State defeated Northern Illinois. So we're talking about a team that can pull an upset if you don't play your A game. Let's get a transition here.
He's trying his best to not give rat poison. This was a 4-win team. A Northern Illinois win represented 25% of their wins. It's not a good football team. You need here's a closer reference point. Miami dominated Miami of Ohio. Dominated in the trenches. This team lost to Miami of Ohio last year. Now, Miami of Ohio was certainly better than they showed against Miami last year. Went on a nice little run there. But this is an opportunity to continue Cam Ward's Heisman campaign because that has not lost any momentum since that first week against Florida. And also get people feeling better about these running backs because I know it's been a hot topic nitpick conversation.
Here we go. EJ Rod. My grandma saw Suleiman years ago, and to this day, she won't stop talking about how good it was. Listen, man, I'm not making this stuff up, folks. This is the real deal. Unnamed producer, can you pull up the picks while we're talking about college football? I hope you're not keeping track at home because I was horrible last week. I had Michigan losing to Texas and Texas covering, as did you. That Arkansas Oklahoma State got burned at the last minute there. You could have had it at 8.5, but I had
your logic was sound there, dude. I stayed away from that game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, some people had it at 8.5. I had it at 7.5, so I'll take the loss on that.
Is this a live screen? Hold on. Is this a picks?
Is
that the graphic that we're doing?
That's how we're doing it.
I do miss Pete. Wow. That's how we're doing it.
I mean, your face is on it already, so you can,
Yeah, no.
They know
shout out to the graphic designer. That's a great picture. I love that picture of
that's
myself.
Breeze.
That's fantastic.
That's Prince and Breeze. That's the young lion.
That's great. Don't use that picture anymore.
So, yeah, had a bad week last week. Appalachian State got completely destroyed by Clemson. Clemson looked good. Appalachian State's not what they've been in the past. I learned that the hard way. And then you mentioned Tennessee, NC State. How'd you do last week?
I think I went 2-2 in the picks that you made me do. I don't like having to do 4 picks, but actually this week I do have a fair amount of conviction.
Yeah, we're not keeping track anyway. So we're gonna be.
So I like
listen,
these.
it's like the players have said all week. We're trying to be 1-0 this week. We're trying to be 4-0 this week. We're not worried about last week. We're gonna be 4-0.
There you go.
Week.
Yeah. Then do that. You should do the lean a little bit. That'll make a lot of sense. Let me get started. Over here, you can see North Texas is a team that's been good to me early on in this college football season. I like Chandler Morris, a nice little dual threat quarterback. I think they have got good pieces, but also this ain't your granddaddy or your daddy's Texas Tech. They've really struggled out the gates. I think that's too many points. I think they have a shot at winning this game straight up, but if not, the back door is wide open there. So do I do this 4 in succession or do I hand it over to you?
No, go ahead. Knock them through. We got to get this graphic off the screen as fast as we can. So roll through them.
All right. Colorado State, Colorado. This was a very close game with a much bigger spread last year. I believe this game's at Colorado State or at the very least a neutral site. But Colorado is not looking very good. Not really thrilled with what the quarterback had to say. If I'm blocking for him, I'm less thrilled at what he had to say. There's a rivalry game. I think that's too many points. Colorado probably wins this game, but maybe a little sprinkle on Colorado State money line too. It's a nice little rivalry, sneaky one. So we're going to take the points in that one. Now, truth be told, I have this game at a bunch of different numbers. When this line opened up, I pounced on it. I honestly thought Memphis at Florida State might be a pick'em game.
Oh.
That in my mind, that's how I would handicap it. To my surprise, it went from 3.5 to all the way to 7 to now settling in around 6.5. My view on this game has not changed. I came out with the take and I got a funny look from Peter Ariz. I got a funny look and the guy fled to another country. I would like to see that goofy face now when I say I'd take Memphis's skill guys over FSU's skill guys. Find me. Quarterback, much better NFL prospects than Uyunglele. Seth Hennigan hasn't even gotten going, and you can say that about him. Mario Anderson, running back, we're splitting hairs here, but I think Mario Anderson's the best running back of the bunch. Rock Taylor, better wide receiver than anyone that FSU has shown so far. They don't have a good receiver room. So what are we doing here, folks? We've seen the college football season so far. Memphis, 2-0 against the spread. FSU, 0-2 straight up. Give me the points until FSU shows me something. I know we disagree on this one. And I gave you full disclosure. I got Memphis at a bad number compared to where it was. Well, guess what? I got Alabama at a great number because it opened up at -9.5, and I couldn't wait to lock in Alabama against Tyler Van Dyke. You kidding me? And that line has ballooned all the way up to -16, so I am sitting pretty. But I like it at -16. I don't think this is going to go very well for old TVD.
I agree. I think the matchup is terrible. You're talking about a bully on the block in Wisconsin going against a bigger bully with more explosiveness in Alabama. So love Alabama there. I agree with you there. Obviously, we disagree on Florida State and Memphis. This just feels like the game. As someone who's covered crappy teams for 20 years, crappy underachieving teams, there's always one game where you get a little bit of they don't believe in me, and your playing opponent is not that good either. And then it comes together and you show off what you can do.
This is a good opponent, D.
Here's the thing.
I got Memphis in the college football playoff.
Well, this is a big game. I mean, look, it doesn't really impact this too much, but I guess it does. In terms of being the top G5 team, you win this game. To me, I think the defensive line, this is a group that's underachieved mightily. They're under the radar, or sorry, under the microscope. They are going to be a team. They're going to be a unit that everybody's watching and kind of throwing dirt on. Talented guys, when you throw dirt on them, sometimes will bounce back and show up. Now, they're not consistent. They're not a Ruben Bain. They're not a Miami defensive lineman that's going to be consistent every week. That's the difference. But they only have to be good this week for this pick to go through. I think the defensive line responds to all the disrespect. They're going to get the G5 offensive line. And I think guys like Marvin Jones, guys like Daryl Jackson, who's been horrible, Farmer, Peyton, they step up against a smaller, overmatched unit, and they take over this game. And Florida State covers at home.
Linebacker to keep an eye on, Elijah Herring for Memphis. Really good player, too.
Now, here with LSU, I went back and forth on this one. Obviously, South Carolina is a huge game for them. Game days there. They're at home.
Perplexing pick.
They had a great game last week. South Carolina's got all the momentum. We are forgetting that South Carolina sucks. They sucked for a long time. So, to me, Garrett Nussmeier is maybe the best quarterback in the country, along with a guy like a Cam Ward. I think Nussmeier might be better than Ewers and some of these other guys that we're talking about, Carson Beck, that we're talking about the first pick of the draft. To me, pure passing, if you want about the first pick of the draft, that Garrett Nussmeier, to me, is outstanding. He's been great. He's not the reason why LSU struggled out the gates. LSU's getting some dirt thrown on him as well. I think South Carolina is not used. They're not the favorite, but they're the team with all the pressure because they're at home with everybody they're watching. LSU's got the disrespect factor. They got a quarterback who can get it done. They got great receivers. They got some great players on defense, even though they don't have a great defense. They can play well against a bad offense in South Carolina with offensive line concerns. I like LSU to shock the world. Nussmeier firmly establishing himself as potentially a Heisman candidate. Then this last one, I don't know if there's a happiness hedge, because obviously I hope I am wrong on these two picks, and Memphis and Texas A&M whoop on Florida and Florida State. But I don't trust Texas A&M yet to go on the road and beat a team that is motivated. The swamp, we saw it doesn't affect good teams, but Texas A&M is not a good team. They have offensive line concerns of their own. They're not going to stonewall Florida's defensive line like Miami did. Lagway factor, he is bringing a lot of excitement and juice to that program. It wouldn't have mattered against Miami. You saw what happened with Lagway against Miami. He threw picks and looked terrible. But against Texas A&M in a spot roll with some confidence, him and Mertz kind of hot-handing. UF's always done that, so it's not something new for them. I could see UF having a great game. Kind of reminds me of Tennessee last year, where UF was able to beat Tennessee and make people think they were good for a second, and then they returned back to being a losing team, which they've been for the past 4 or 5 years. This feels like the Tennessee game of last year. I like UF over Texas A&M. Slide right back. I just get this thing out of the way. Get this thing.
Said a team that is motivated. Just like just made that up. Like, you don't know. There comes a Florida. I think Texas A&M is plenty motivated too.
I think UF feels disrespected because we had the shirts. By the way, let's unnamed producer, pull up the Shopify. I know it's out of order. Go pull up the Shopify link here. Look at that. UF is motivated because they see this shirt being worn all over the state of Florida and the country, getting orders from all over the world. The Won't Back Down, Tom Petty. Now Miami anthem. Shout out to Tom Petty. One of my favorites, longtime favorites.
DJ, you're slacking. I issued a challenge. Play Won't Back Down. That's our song now. Although credit where it's due. It's the only criticism that I have of our DJ, who seemed to be locked in. Much better. Big improvement. Kind
of like Florida. He heard the criticism and responded. The DJ responded. Will Florida respond to the Won't Back Down shirt? You can get that link, and that link's available in the description. It's on our website. You can get those. Those are flying off the shelves. All right. Oh, let's go. We got another segment here brought to you by the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Go ahead and pick up Team Store link there. Look at that. The LeFevre collection, really cool retro stuff. This is the official team store of the Miami Hurricanes, of Miami Hurricane Athletics. Harry Rothwell, you know him from All Canes. He's across the street, bigger and better and nicer digs. They had an autograph session we talked about earlier with Damian Martinez, Mish Powell. Our guy Johnny Lagoon was there. A lot of people were there, brought their kids. Awesome event. There's more to come. You want to be part of the program, bring it in tight. Hurricane Team Store. That's where it's at. You see JoJo Trader. He's got a future in modeling if the receiver thing doesn't work out, but it will. But he's out there. I think that's Ray Joseph over there. I don't know who this young lady in the middle is, but she looks pretty dynamic. Is this one of the female basketball players?
Looks like one of the new ones.
All right, do some research on that. You're a basketball correspondent. So
a lot of Canadians on that basketball team.
Hey, listen, Trish is building something special there. We're excited.
Yeah, they're going to be playing in Maui.
Oh, really?
They're opening up. Yeah, it's our preseason tournament.
When is it?
In December.
Okay.
Maui Invitational.
We're gonna be. This is gonna be the most women's basketball coverage you ever had at Canes Insight. Mike is a true fan. He travels to Europe with the team, so we're gonna get you the best insight there. Of course, the Cavender twins. A lot of excitement around the program and some other talented young women on that squad. Miami basketball will cover it. Baseball, we got some real stuff cooking soon. Javi Salas episode drops now. But anyways, so it's the Miami Hurricane Team Store post of the day. New thing we've been doing on the podcast, you may have noticed, showing the signature post of the day on canesinsight.com. 7 million post and counting. Love to get to 8 million before the season ends because things are flying with the activity on the board. People are juiced about the program. I'm going to do something that I promise I will not do very often. And my own post is the post of the day.
Are you kidding me?
I just had to rip on FSU. This is
Are you kidding me?
It's not about me. I'm just a vessel to rip on FSU. I'm just a vessel. So, our guys, Mac, Kelly Gramlich out there on the ACC network. They have an awesome show. Great people.
There was nothing better. There were no other options.
Let's.
This is like just pulling rank.
They're not pulling any rank.
Founder.
This is not pulling rank. This is not
This
about
pulling
me.
founder card.
This is not about me. All right. This is about the Florida State Seminoles and where they're at as a program. All right. So, Gramlich and McLean, one of the best shows on ACC Network. Great podcast, great people. They interviewed Mike Norvell. This is ACC. This is not a Miami podcast. It's the ACC podcast. They interviewed Mike Norvell before the season, before the 2 humiliating losses. 2,844 views. Let's scroll down a little bit. They interviewed the money of the Canes Insight podcast. Look at that. 3,277. That's the head ball coach. The head ball coach is getting outdrawn by the needle movers here at canesinsight.com. Now, Cristobal had 6 million. All right. I'm not trying to compare myself to the big man, but the little man, the cornrows man here, Mike Norvell, the numbers have tongues. The men lie, women lie, numbers don't. That's where FSU is at a program. Now, it was before they had 2 humiliating losses and potentially a third to Memphis if Mike is on point. Yeah. So
I'm so locked into that game. That's like the biggest game of the week for me. Memphis at Florida State. So much hinging on that. Not just playoff chances, but oh my gosh, they're paying him like $1.3 million. And I think this was a part of the Mike Norvell buyout. This is one of the things that got negotiated. So if they pay Memphis to beat their former coach to the tune of $1.3 million and leave them in an 0-3 lurch, the banter, I'll cross the line. I've been on the sidelines. Outside of what I've said on this show, I've been letting them off easy. Game on. And I'm a big Memphis guy too. It was year 1 of my dynasty. So that's how I know Elijah Herring.
I don't know if you're currently feeling the breeze, but Trenton Breeze says he's with you. He has Memphis covering. I hope he is not gambling.
It means a lot to me, young lion.
And it's from my it's 4:30. It's 4:35, so we might be in between the last period of school and basketball practice.
Appreciate you, young lion.
So
use different pictures.
We typically will go to
also, why are you second on the graphic, on the picks graphic? I'm like, what is that? What is happening there? Is this an order of importance to the Canes Insight? Because if it is, you can make a convincing argument that Trenton Breeze is more important to our operation here. But I found it curious. My wife asked me, why is there an 8-year-old boy ahead of you on the picks? I'm like, well, that's just, he's a fire graphic designer. To be honest, he designed it, and that's what he came up with.
Make it, you take it. By the way, I think his pick was closer than yours on the game score. I think Trenton's.
No, actually, no. I heard you say that. I think like we have a very similar point difference. You try to take credit for having. I had it at 58-10. They had 12 points, and I think we had 59. So I think we both landed on 3. So sorry to blow up your spots there. So how about this? How about whoever was closer in the game prediction gets the higher placement on the graphic the following week? Let's establish that.
I like that, Trenton. If you're hearing that, that's a good idea. Let's rank them in order of closest score, and that's who gets in order of the graphic. A little more work, but we're a merit-based operation here at canesinsight.com.
Clearly,
I wish we were playing Memphis because we would have had way better songs to choose from for our song of the week. Because Memphis, like to keep it kind of topical. And of course, Memphis is the best music city to me in the country between Stax Records, High Records, Elvis, 3-6 Mafia. I mean, Memphis is a gold mine when it comes to music. Johnny Cash, made his name out there in Memphis, but we got Indiana.
Yeah. So, and typically I've been liking to take my wrestler of the week and song of the week and tie it into the opponent, but I wanted to be specific to Muncie, Indiana, Because if I take the entire state of Indiana, there's a lot of great musicians that came out of Indiana. King of Pop came from Gary, Indiana.
Yep.
But I didn't want to do that. So I was looking at the band specifically from Muncie. There was only one that I had heard of, Brazil. Didn't want to pick them for my song of the week. So then do I do a more macro thing with Indiana? No, not necessarily. If I can avoid the Michael Jackson endorsements, I will. So
Guns N' Roses too, which we had last week. So that was kind of a repeat.
So what I decided to do for my song of the week, nameless producer, I hope you're keeping up. It's after the Ball State game, I am hopping in my car and I'm driving north to West Palm. Not my favorite concert venue, but I had the opportunity to see Korn a couple of years ago, got rained out at Rockville. So I haven't actually seen Korn. Teenage Mike's one of his favorite bands. So it's a nice little guilty pleasure for me. But the opening band is Gojira. And Gojira absolutely stole the show on what was, in retrospect, a pretty controversial opening ceremonies. But I think one thing that everybody could agree on is, that metal act was crazy. There were heads and headless bodies and windows, and there were flames. This was nuts. Gojira totally tore it up. And Gojira is actually opening up for Korn. So I'm going with a song called Mea Culpa, which is actually the track that they performed at the Olympic opening ceremony. I scoured the internet to find it. It wasn't there initially, but a couple weeks later, someone had the presence of mind to say, hey, people want to hear that specific song in their car all the damn time and not just fire up the highlights of that opening ceremony. So Mea Culpa by Gojira. It's the exact same track from the opening ceremonies. Since I'm seeing Gojira on Saturday, throw them a bone. Love that track.
No, great choice. They did rock. That was an awesome part of that. We get a lot of comments about 8-Ball and MG. I did forget to include them. Sorry, MJG in the Memphis category. So yeah, you're right about that. Freddie Gibbs. I'm not familiar with him. Young Dolph.
Love Freddie
RIP.
Gibbs.
But
great artwork. A Miami artist behind the Freddie Gibbs artwork.
Oh, really?
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, look, I wanted to go with Guns N' Roses. I went with them last week. But I did find another Indiana artist, which ties back to a song that's been in my head. They played it before every kickoff in Gainesville. There were a lot of Miami kickoffs if you're watching that game. A lot of points being scored. It's been in my head all week. Kickstart My Heart, Motley Crue. Nikki Sixx had an overdose. They had to restart his heart. So he came up with the song Kickstart My Heart. Incredible hit. Mickey Mars from Indiana. The lead guitarist who ripped a nasty solo on the song. He is from Indiana. And I also learned that Motley Crue played a show in Indiana, I believe in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they threw a cowbell in the crowd and hit somebody. They got sued for like 5 Gs. They had to pay 5 Gs to some guy got hit in the head with a cowbell in Indiana. So there was like an article in the Indiana newspaper about all the Motley Crue ties to Indiana. The cowbell was one of them. So shout out to Motley Crue. Kickstart My Heart. I'm not saying we need to steal it from the Gators for our kickoffs, but they might not be using it that much. I mean, they might use it one time a game for the rest of the season when they get into SEC play and get hot and heavy. So we'll be kicking off a lot. We need to get a nice kickoff song. We had Sandstorm for a while. That was okay. Kickstart My Heart, Motley Crue. To me, something like that would get the juices flowing.
I saw Motley Crue a couple months ago, actually, at Welcome to Rockville, one of my favorite festivals. That's all I can say about that. Saw them.
Yeah, they're still. It's
rocking. Hard. That's as Axel proved. That's a difficult octave to keep later in life.
It's difficult everything to keep. I'm not sure anything kind of ages gracefully with that sound.
Tommy Lee's aged quite nicely.
Oh yeah, he looks the same. Yeah, he's doing great. Rocking as usual. All right, so let's switch to the wrestler of the week. I'm going to take the first one here, and keeping the Indiana theme, I went with a guy who. Listen, people thought he was dated, but I got to say, I showed my kids this guy and they were saying he was the best wrestler they've ever seen. That is the Ultimate Warrior. Those of you who grew up, I'm born in 85. He was the man. He was unstoppable, beat Hulk Hogan in Toronto in the stadium, one of the rare face versus face main events. He went away for like 7 months, which felt like an eternity, although really nowadays it's not that much. He goes away for 7 months, comes back. Steroids they'd cracked down on steroids because of the trial with Vince. So he came back looking a little lean. Different haircuts. A lot of people speculated that he had died and been replaced by
Damar Hamlin,
a crisis actor, Ultimate Warrior. I heard there were theories that he had his tassels were too tight and he died because of the tassels being too tight. Of course, steroid rumors as far as his death, but he lived for a little bit longer. And came back got up to the Hall of Fame, died right after. But somebody who you see the presentation, you think it's all 80s, but my kids saw this and they were like, it's amazing. What a great entrance. Of course, I realized later that the Ultimate Warrior song is a ripoff of Master of Puppets, Metallica, but possibly an improvement. I'll let you guys be the judge in the comments. Ultimate Warrior from Indiana, our wrestler of the week.
I took a wrestler of the week as well from the great state of Indiana, the Funk family. Not many people know that from Indiana. They're more synonymous with down south because of what they did in the territory days, but originally from the Indiana, and trust me, Indiana can get pretty country. And Terry Funk, I want to really highlight what he did later in his career, because as sincere and believable a menace on the microphone, there's a great video, by the way, of him no-selling a donkey kick. Like, he got kicked in the head in one of these Falls Count Anywhere matches by a horse or something, and totally no-sold it. Terry Funk was a madman, and later in his career, after had already retired, and Terry Funk went on to retire and unretire quite a bit, but the work that he did with ECW, Terry Funk brought a legitimacy with him, a reputation, great rivalries with Ric Flair, tons of great work in the territory days, but without him, ECW probably doesn't get as legitimized. Paul Heyman knew what he was doing in getting an old guy that was a tried and true babyface to that audience. Terry Funk did some horrible, sinister things, but he was a babyface by comparison at ECW. And that guy would sacrifice his body. Barbed wire matches against Sabu, one of the greatest triple threats, one of the first triple threats you'd ever see. Terry Funk delivered in the ring at an advanced age, delivered on the mic every time, was a world champion for them. And without him, you probably don't have ECW in the zeitgeist as long as it was. Terry Funk, rest in peace, gave his body and sacrificed so much for everybody's entertainment, influenced countless others. Did work in Asia that we don't even have tapes of, and his body was scarred up from it. So just a true legend of the game. And I think promos, if you're a superstar these days, if you want to be a villain, study Terry Funk, because that guy came across as a terrifying individual without a gimmick around him to make him scary. No, he was just scary speaking into a microphone. Great worker, great talker.
Mike M here saying great promos from the Funks. I don't remember. I saw it later on in life, but when he called Dusty Rose an egg-sucking dog, unbelievable. I was one of those ECW kids. So those of you who grew up in South Florida, we had the Sunshine Network, and at 2 a.m., I want to say on Fridays or Saturdays, I think it was a weekend day, at 2 a.m., ECW came on, so you stayed up, retaped it, whatever, and Funk was like the man at that time. And, there was a story that Steve Austin said when he got fired from WCW, he went to ECW for a bit, and the first day he's there, Terry Funk accidentally set someone in the crowd on fire. Steve Austin's like, I just got here, man. They're going to shut down the whole promotion. How am I going to get paid? But he was awesome, Funk. He was older at that time, but he was crazier than ever. I remember we used to go to shows, and someone in the comments, we had some crazy marks in the comments. I'm sure someone else was there. The War Memorial in Fort Lauderdale used to run the ECW shows. Mm-hmm. So we'd go out to the War Memorial, watch the shows, and they would have tapes out back. And from RF Video, one of the tapes was Terry Funk's greatest hits, right? It was like VHS. So I bought the VHS. We went home, watched it. And the opening video was a highlight reel of Terry Funk, like, setting people on fire, blowing up cages, like cutting people to the tune of Desperado by the Eagles. I believe it was actually Clint Black's cover of Desperado, but the Eagles.
Either way, it wasn't licensed.
Definitely wasn't licensed. But I remember as a kid, I'm like 7th grade, and I was not a man yet. I hadn't crossed that many roads yet. But hearing that song, the emotional Desperado, while Terry Funk is ripping Cactus Jack's face on barbed wire, was a very emotional moment for a young D Money, and it started a lifelong love affair with the song Desperado. You ever seen that Seinfeld sketch where do you see that Seinfeld sketch where Elaine's boyfriend was putting on Desperado and Elaine started talking and he said, Elaine, I would appreciate it if you shut the hell up. I've never identified more with a character in a TV show than that. Desperado, one of the best songs of all time. Terry Funk, one of the best wrestlers of all time. Rest in peace. Pretty good. Where we at? We're at 120. We got 1,500 people. I think the most we've ever had on this show for this nonsense that we're talking about right now.
Well, the wrestling thing, it's very bizarre.
Ball State.
That's perfect. You can end the broadcast there. Perfect.
Go Canes.
Go Canes. Pete, hop in. Pete.